Morning is the most sacred time of the day, not because of the sunlight or the sound of birds, but because it's the moment before the world touches you, before the flood of emails, before the messages pull you away, before even the first sip of coffee. There lies a choice. How will you live today? Most people wake up in a rush. Their minds are already tangled in worries while their bodies are still wrapped in blankets. But a Stoic does not begin the day that way. They don't let the world shape their emotions. They take initiative and steady their mind from the very first second. And the surprising thing is, you don't need hours of meditation or some elaborate routine. Just 5 sentences. 5 simple lines, if repeated with sincerity, can reshape how you see yourself, how you act, and how you face the world. Nothing else is needed. 1 deep breath, a little silence, and 5 reminders. That's how the day begins, not in haste, but in strength. 1. I'm grateful I'm still here. Many people misunderstand gratitude as a spontaneous emotion like joy or happiness, something that only arises when something good happens. They believe they'll only feel grateful when life goes smoothly, when they are loved, when something fortunate or unexpected comes their way. But Stoic philosophy doesn't see gratitude as a feeling dependent on outside circumstances. It sees it as a conscious choice, a deliberate act of the mind, practiced not in ease, but especially in moments when there seems to be nothing to be grateful for. That is inner strength, and it is where freedom begins. Picture a typical morning. The alarm rings, your mind is foggy, your hand instinctively reaches to silence it, and instantly, notifications, messages, emails, all flood in and pull your attention away from yourself. The day begins before you're even awake. By noon, you're drained, dragged along by dozens of trivial concerns, unable to stay grounded. That's the default mode, living on reflex. But a Stoic doesn't live that way. They don't let the world dictate their inner state from the very beginning. They choose to pause, right at the moment they open their eyes, and guide the mind back. I'm grateful I'm still here. And what's worth noting is this. This act of gratitude requires no particular reason. It doesn't demand a good event. It doesn't require you to feel cheerful. Gratitude simply means looking at the truth. You are still alive. You are still breathing. You still have a chance. That alone is worth everything. No embellishment needed. No extra layers. This isn't blind optimism, it's awareness. Stoics don't paint life in bright colors. They simply don't let indifference steal what is already precious. The present. And it's that awareness that becomes your resilience. Because if you're only grateful when things are good, your gratitude is fragile. It's conditional. It fades when hardship appears. But if every morning you can say to yourself, I'm grateful I'm still here, even when tired, even when anxious, even when life feels like chaos, then that is no longer just gratitude. It's strength. It's a reminder that you still have time to live with meaning, to become better, to show up, to make things right, to love, to start over. It's the power of choice, the choice to do what is right, even when your emotions resist it. This one small morning phrase, if practiced consistently, is like a mental reset. It pulls you out of reaction mode. It severs the grip of negative patterns. And it creates a still moment, a moment where you're no longer swept away, but grounded, aware, and able to begin again with intention. That's the essence of Stoicism. Not waiting for inspiration, but acting from principle. Not letting emotions decide your state of mind, but allowing reason to lead. And each morning, the words, I'm grateful I'm still here, become the first step on that path. In a world that constantly pushes you to achieve more, faster, further, pausing to acknowledge the value of the present may seem like going against the current. But to a Stoic, this is the very definition of freedom and balance. They don't place happiness ahead in the distance, don't wait for success, don't wait for things to settle before allowing themselves to feel grateful. They face the present, as messy as it is, and say, "I'm grateful I'm still here." Not because the present is perfect, but because it is real, and that reality in itself is a gift. We often tie gratitude to good things that have happened or hopeful things to come. We say thank you when someone helps us, when we get what we want, when results go our way. But what about gray mornings? The days when nothing seems in place? The moments when you're struggling with yourself, your work, your emotions? The Stoics teach that it's in those very moments you need gratitude the most, not because you're at your best, but because you're still here, still walking your path. Being grateful for the present doesn't mean rejecting change or settling for less. It doesn't mean you have to be satisfied with everything. It means you don't have to wait for anything else to begin living with awareness. The present is the only place you truly have power. The future is a guess. The past is untouchable. But the present, even if it's a dull morning, a messy room, a heavy mood, is still the foundation for any real change. And if you overlook this moment while chasing what's next, you've lost the only thing that could truly transform you. Gratitude for the now frees you from one of modern life's biggest traps. When I get a new job, when I lose 10 pounds, when I have enough money, when someone changes, then I'll be happy, then I'll be grateful. But that "when" is an empty promise, never enough. Stoics don't wait to live. They live now in the chaos, in the limitations, in the unfinished, because they know if you can't find gratitude in the present, you won't find it in any other moment either. When you truly look at the present and say, "I'm grateful I'm still here," you remove the pressure to make life special in order for it to matter. You acknowledge that simply being alive with clarity and confusion, with abundance and lack, is already miraculous. You don't need a grand reason to feel grateful. Just the light through the blinds, the sound of birds outside, the rhythm of your breath is enough to realize you've been given another chance. And that chance, however small, is all you really need. That's why Stoics don't treat gratitude as a reaction, but as a foundation. Not because everything is fine, but because they are present. Not because the outside world is calm, but because within they recognize a deeper truth. This moment is real, and I'm in it. That is enough. In an age that constantly rushes you toward what's next, returning to the present and being grateful to live in this moment is a radical act. And sometimes, that's the only thing you need to begin your day with strength. 2. Yesterday no longer owns me. Many people think they're living in the present, but in truth, they're just reliving the past in a different form. A painful comment, a failure, a silence never explained these things may seem to have passed, yet they linger in the mind like a song on endless repeat. And so when a new day begins, we're not truly living in the now. We're reacting to what happened yesterday. That keeps us from acting with conscious choice, and instead, we move through unconscious reflex where old emotions quietly dictate current behavior. You can see this in the smallest moments, when you avoid someone due to an unresolved conflict, when you overreact to a comment because it reminds you of an old wound, or when you tell yourself, "I'm not good enough," because of a past failure. These things aren't real anymore, but you still allow them to shape how you see yourself, how you interact, and how you make decisions today. The Stoics call that a surrender of self-control. Because once you let undigested memories keep replaying their part in your mind, You've handed the reins of your life to things that no longer exist. We cannot erase the past, but we can decide whether it still holds power over the present. Stoics don't deny what happened. They observe it, learn from it, and then put it down. They understand that if a mistake from yesterday still makes you doubt yourself today, then that mistake is still unfolding, not out there, but within you. And each time you let an old emotion drive a new action, you unconsciously extend the pain, allowing the past to write the script for your future. Saying, "Yesterday no longer owns me," is an act of agency. It doesn't come from avoidance or denial, but from a strong awareness that you have the right to choose how to live today, regardless of what happened yesterday. That sentence marks a boundary between what was and what is. It severs the loop of reactivity and opens a space where you can choose anew, not based on memory, but on values, reason, and purpose. A new day is always a blank page. But if you keep writing old lines on it, you'll never read a new story. The Stoics don't let the past cast a shadow over the present. They live with the awareness that although they can't change what was, they have full control over how they respond and the attitude they choose today. And that power, when renewed each morning, is the key to stop reacting by instinct and start living as a free human being. We're often generous with our compassion toward others, yet unbearably harsh with ourselves. When we make mistakes, we don't just feel regret, we punish ourselves by replaying judgments in our heads. Why was I so stupid? I should have known better. I don't deserve forgiveness. These thoughts, mistaken as repentance, are in truth a form of inner imprisonment. And if you never learn to forgive yourself, you'll keep living in the past, bound to a flawed version of you that no longer exists. The Stoics never advocate self-indulgence, but neither do they see self-punishment as the right path to growth. They emphasize awareness, facing a mistake honestly, extracting the lesson, and adjusting future actions. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is not forgetting or ignoring it, is a courageous act. The courage to look at yourself without flinching, to release what no longer serves your growth, and to believe you can begin again, better this time. Think of something you've been tormenting yourself over. Maybe a word that hurt someone, a missed opportunity, or a choice that brought shame. These things, real as they were, cannot be undone. But what can change is how you face them today. You can let them silence you, shake your confidence, or keep you from starting over. Or you can choose to forgive, and from that forgiveness, create space for trust, for patience, and for the next step to feel lighter. Forgiving yourself is essential to break free from the cycle of guilt and self-condemnation. Because if you keep holding on to outdated images of who you were, you'll never allow yourself to become someone else, someone beyond the one who messed up. And if you define yourself solely by past failures, no matter how many chances come your way, you won't believe in your own worth enough to grasp them. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it opens a door, one you walk through with lightness, carrying the lesson instead of the weight. The Stoics don't deny pain, but they don't feed it either. They understand that every mistake carries information about your limits, your gaps, your virtues in need of training. And that clear-eyed, non-judgmental observation is the foundation of growth. Self-forgiveness, then, is not a reward or an indulgence, but an inner discipline, one that keeps you from getting stuck in what was and gives you the strength to move toward what could be. Each morning, when you remind yourself, "Yesterday no longer owns me," you are quietly forgiving yourself, not because you're perfect, but because you're honest. And from that honesty, you begin a life not bound by the past, but free to grow each day in all your imperfection. 3. I control my mind. In modern culture, emotions are often seen as something we should stay true to, as a mark of authenticity or sensitivity. But the Stoics viewed emotions differently, not to deny them, nor to glorify them. They understood that emotions are a natural part of being human, but when allowed to lead blindly, we become slaves to fleeting states. And there is no real freedom if our minds are constantly dragged around by anger, anxiety, or fear. Stoics don't try to eliminate emotion. They don't force themselves into numbness. Instead, they train the ability to observe emotions like clouds moving across the sky, noticing their arrival, recognizing their shape, but not chasing them or being swallowed by them. The phrase, "I control my mind," doesn't imply coldness. It's a reminder that we always have the right to pause, to examine what emotion we're feeling, where it comes from, and how it deserves to be met. For example, you read a message that hurts you. The instinctive response is anger, a sharp reply, or silence as punishment. But if you pause for just 10 seconds and ask, "Why did I feel offended? Does this emotion come from them or from something in my past? How can I respond without regret?" You've just shifted from reaction to reasoned response. That's the essence of emotional navigation. Not suppression, but transformation. As you practice observing emotion, you begin to realize that many of them are just waves. They come and go. Not every emotion is worth following. Not every thought is true just because it showed up. And just because you feel something doesn't make it fact. Stoics train the ability to separate emotion from action. They allow themselves to feel, but do not let those feelings turn into words or behaviors unless they serve what is right. The issue isn't what you feel, it's what you choose to do with that feeling. You can feel sorrow and still act with kindness. You can feel anger and not destroy. You can feel disappointed and still persist. And in the space between emotion and action, you create room for choice, for mastery, and for living by your values instead of being steered by what is fleeting. Many people think controlling emotion means suppressing it, but in truth, it's the only path to freedom. Because if you don't master your emotions will master you. And that doesn't just affect one moment, it shapes how you treat the world, others, and most of all, yourself. Saying, "I control my mind," each morning is a way to ground yourself. It doesn't erase emotion, it places it in the light of reason, so you don't live by reaction, but by conscious choice. That is the path to the inner peace Stoics quietly pursue. We grow up in a world that teaches us to control. Control our work, control others, control the future, even control the unpredictable nature of life itself. But reality quickly shatters that illusion. Someone misunderstands you. A plan collapses last minute. Bad news arrives when things seemed fine. And suddenly you find yourself lost, frustrated, powerless because things outside don't go your way. The Stoics saw this clearly, thousands of years ago. They didn't try to fix the world. They focused on the only thing they could shape, themselves. Epictetus once said, "We are not disturbed by what happens, but by our interpretation of what happens." A simple sentence, yet it holds the foundation of inner freedom. Because if everything in life depends on the outside, on how others behave, on the weather, on approval, then you live like a leaf, carried by every passing wind. But if you know that, no matter what happens, you still have the power to choose your response, then you are no longer dragged by life. You begin to live from within, grounded in a stability deeper than any circumstance. Imagine an ordinary day. You're driving and someone cuts you off dangerously. The first impulse is anger, to yell, to react harshly. But if in that moment you remind yourself, I can't control what they do, but I can control how I respond. You not only avoid a needless conflict, you preserve your inner peace. The emotion may surge, but your behavior is still yours to decide. That is freedom, a deeper freedom than any external control you've ever imagined. Inner freedom doesn't mean never facing hardship. It means knowing you can remain steady in its presence. It's not about everything going smoothly. It's about returning, no matter what, to a stable mind, unshaken by events. That doesn't come from trying to control everything, but from letting go of what was never yours to control in the first place, and focusing instead on what always is, how you respond, how you live, how you choose your attitude. The Stoics see mastering your response not just as a habit, but as a moral act. Because how you respond doesn't just affect you, it shapes the world around you. A calm word instead of harshness can shift a conversation. A compassionate look instead of judgment can restore a relationship. And most of all, every time you respond with steadiness, you tell yourself, I decide my mood and my character, not circumstances, not others, not fate. So each morning, when you remind yourself, I control my mind, you affirm a fundamental truth. Peace doesn't require life to be gentle. It only requires that your mind not be led astray by what isn't worth it. And that is the mark of someone truly free. 4. I choose courage over comfort. Most of us know that growth requires facing the truth, but that doesn't make it any easier. To be honest, truth is often uncomfortable. It might be valid criticism, a failure we'd rather forget, a negative emotion we avoid, or a part of ourselves we're not ready to confront. In those moments, our instinct is to run blame, excuse, delay, or pretend nothing happened. Because truth, when it challenges our ego, often hurts. But the moment we turn our back on it, we lose a part of our inner strength. The Stoics never saw truth as an enemy. They treated it like a stern friend, sometimes hard to hear, but always seeking our growth. They believed that if we're unwilling to face the truth, we're living a borrowed life where fleeting comfort is valued over lasting integrity. And that isn't freedom, it's a subtle form of imprisonment, needing an excuse to escape, someone to blame, an illusion to lean on. Yet, truth, even when it humiliates, wounds, or shakes us, is the only thing that can build the foundation of real self-mastery. Courage, in the Stoic spirit, doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means facing what makes us uncomfortable. It means asking, am I pretending to be okay? Is there some truth in that criticism? Am I avoiding a responsibility that is mine to own? These are not easy questions, but if answered honestly, they open a door where you stop living in illusion and begin living by principle. And that is where real change begins. Facing the truth is not just about facing others, it's first about facing ourselves. To look at what we've done wrong, to admit the limits we've denied, and to acknowledge feelings we've buried too long. It could mean admitting this relationship is no longer healthy, this job is draining you, or that sadness isn't just a little stress. These things are hard to say out loud, sometimes even to think. But without truth, every attempt at change is just running in circles. That's why every morning when you tell yourself, I choose courage over comfort, you're setting a direction for how you live. You won't choose ease if it comes at the cost of honesty. You're willing to feel discomfort in order to live rightly, because you understand. Avoiding truth may bring temporary relief, but only courage brings real freedom and growth. Stoics never chased an easy life, they pursued a life of character. And all character begins with truth, uncomfortable but essential. The instinct of human nature is always safety. We gravitate toward what's familiar, old routines, environments we can control. There, things are predictable, low risk, and don't stir anxiety. But that same comfort zone quietly shrinks our potential every day. Because no one truly grows by staying within what they already know. All growth, whether mental, emotional, or moral, requires one thing: stepping out of what's easy and into what's challenging. The Stoics didn't grow through ease, but by deliberately walking into what was unfamiliar, uncertain, and uncomfortable to forge strength through it. Think of the last time you truly grew. Maybe it was after a rejection, when you had to take ownership at work, or when you were forced to change your life after a crisis. Those moments weren't easy. Some were painful, but did you notice? Those were the times you learned real lessons, gained real insights, and saw real depth in yourself. That growth wasn't born of comfort. It came from walking through the unknown, from stepping out of what once felt enough. The Stoics understood that the familiar is where the mind stagnates. There, you don't face uncertainty, but you also don't feel fully alive. They didn't wait for challenges to arrive. They created small daily trials to train themselves. It could be as simple as waking up earlier than usual, speaking the truth instead of staying silent, leaving a toxic relationship, or starting over before the path is clear. These things are never easy, but each time you do them, you don't just complete a task, you expand your inner capacity. Growth doesn't come from simply collecting experiences. It comes from how you step through each challenge with willing effort. When you say, "I choose courage over comfort," you're rejecting a life that merely sustains surface-level stability and choosing one that truly develops you even at the cost of short-term ease. And in every hard step you take, you learn something rare: that you're stronger than you thought, that you can change, and that each hardship is an invitation to become a deeper, steadier, more honest version of yourself. The Stoics never saw hardship as misfortune. They saw it as a proving ground for virtue. Courage, to them, wasn't impulsiveness. It was the steadiness to step away from comfort. And they knew, if you only live within what's familiar, you'll keep repeating yourself. But if you're willing to step out even in small ways, each new day will no longer be a copy of the last, but a real journey where you're not just living, you're growing, little by little, in freedom and in truth. 5. I will be fully present in this moment. If you often feel tired, tense, and unable to find peace of mind, the issue may not be the amount of work, but the fact that your mind is being pulled in too many directions, most of which are not the present. The human mind has a built-in tendency. It either runs to the past to analyze, regret, and self-blame, or leaps into the future to worry, predict, and prepare for what hasn't yet happened. Both directions pull us away from the only thing that truly exists, the present moment. And when we're not fully present, we lose our vital energy, lose connection with ourselves, and with that comes a sense of unease with no clear cause. The Stoics observed this long ago and understood. Suffering comes not so much from circumstances as from how we think about them. You could be sitting in a quiet room, undisturbed, with nothing seriously wrong, and yet your mind is replaying a mistake from last year or stressing about a meeting this afternoon. Your body responds as if those things were happening right now. Your heart rate rises, your breath shortens, your shoulders tense, and your presence drains away. That's why you can feel exhausted even while doing nothing. It's not the action, it's the endless thinking that wears you down. The phrase, "I will be fully present in this moment," is not just a motivational line, it's a concrete guide to escape that mental spiral. When you remind yourself to return to the present, you're doing something practical. You stop, breathe slowly, and ask, what is truly here right now? You may notice that you're safe, that there's air to breathe, that you're seated on solid ground, and that the threats you're reacting to exist only in thought. Returning to the present is an act of renewal. It's like gathering all the scattered energy and pulling it back to one point, the point where life is actually happening. The Stoics didn't romanticize the present, but they saw it as the foundation of all possibility. You cannot change the past, nor can you touch the future. The only place you can actually live, decide, and act is the present. If you miss this moment because your mind is elsewhere, you're not just wasting time, you're missing your life. And if that continues day after day, you may reach the end without ever knowing how you truly lived. That's why the Stoics trained the ability to be present, not because they weren't busy, but because they knew. Without presence, all other effort is meaningless. To many, being present sounds passive, as if it means sitting still and doing nothing. But in truth, presence requires deep inner engagement. It's not resignation or detachment, it's a conscious act. Pausing, clearly observing what is happening both outside and within, and accepting it as it is without labeling, without rushing to fix, without resisting through reflex. For the Stoics, presence is where reason and calm meet, creating space between stimulus and response, and in that space, you reclaim your inner freedom. We often react too quickly to everything: a comment that annoys us, a small mistake that sparks anger, a surprise that leaves us confused. In that instant, the mind rushes to judge. Good, bad, right, wrong, worthy of worry, or not. But the Stoic practice is to pause before judging. They observe emotion like someone standing on a riverbank watching the current, knowing it flows but not diving in, not getting swept away. They don't suppress emotion, they simply refuse to let it dictate behavior if it serves no useful purpose. When you are present without judgment, you allow yourself to see reality more clearly. A moment of pain no longer becomes a disaster. Rejection no longer immediately means, "I'm not good enough." A pause in conversation no longer feels boring or pointless. You stop seeing the world through a lens of expectation and begin seeing things as they are. And that honesty with the present experience is the first step toward peace. What matters is this: presence isn't reserved for quiet moments like meditation or rest. You can be present while washing dishes, walking, having a conversation, or even during difficult emotions. All it takes is a reminder: observe, don't judge. Feel the sounds, the light, the heartbeat, the emotion. Don't change anything, just be fully there. And something strange will happen. Your mind will feel lighter, clearer, and deeper, not because the world outside has changed, but because you're no longer at war with it. I used to wake up feeling pushed by time, as if the new day were an endless race. Everything started in a rush, checking my phone, replying to messages, thinking about what needed to be done, and I forgot that I'd just been given another chance to live. But since I started practicing these 5 affirmations each morning, everything began to shift. Not in a magical or dramatic way, but in a quiet, internal way. I no longer let my mood be dictated by notifications or circumstances, but by what I choose to believe at the very start of the day. Some mornings, I still feel tired, still anxious, still confused, but just by sitting still for a minute, closing my eyes and repeating, "I'm grateful," I control my mind, I immediately find my footing again. These affirmations are like anchors of awareness amid the current of life. They don't make the day easier, but they make me stronger to walk through it. If this message spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next one. Thank you for giving time to yourself, And always remember, you don't need to do anything extraordinary to live a meaningful day. You just need to be present and live true to what you choose to believe. I'll see you in the next video.